I've faced a lot of resistance sometimes with engineers when, I enter the discussion and I'm like trying to be empathetic about it and saying like, you guys don't have all the application knowledge that I do in the marketing technical world. Here's everything I know. Here's all the context. Here's the background on why I want to do this. But I've often faced like specific resistance from folks because it's a technical area and they think that they own it and they think they understand the world well enough that they have an opinion to share and we have like back and forth and they don't agree with the decision. Like,
Right.
what advice do you have? Because like your first answer was just like, just share the context and explain what you're trying to do. But what advice do you have when after you share that context, there's disagreement on where to go and what are the next steps?
It's a really interesting one, um, because even if we just think about the general split between business and tech, right? Then of course, business people are the business experts and tech are the tech experts, right? But neither of them can work without the other either, right? So
Hmm.
like a tech, if it's not being used for business, it doesn't have any value.
Right.
And when the business person doesn't use the tech, they're gonna have a really bad time because they're not enabled in any way, right? So it should be in their natural interest to work together. So basically, disagreeing with each other is a little bit under the underlying problem with that is that you are undermining each other's expertise. It does feel a little bit like, who are you to tell me that I don't understand tech enough, right? But in
Hmm.
reality, I am a tech expert, but you still need to use my technology. Actually, we should make it work, right? And if we haven't considered each other's point of views yet, then now is the time to consider it because in the end, we need each other to be considerate enough to actually basically work together. So that that whole principle of always assuming positive intent, right? Which is one of the
Hmm.
principles of going through life, I would say, and being a positive person, is easily then mistaken for always assume bad intention, right? So the moment you're saying something that's a disagreement, you are interpreting it as you are actually evaluating my expertise, whereas it's just a disagreement on this is not how I do things. Can we please work together to make this work for both sides? So if we can change it around, right, to say disagreement is is a way to find common ground, and it's not about focusing on what makes us different, but it's focusing on what actually we have in common, then maybe that can lead to a better outcome.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like healthy disagreement is something that comes up a
Exactly.
lot in your book, and actually, like checked out a lot of your posts on LinkedIn, and one of your most famous posts, you went like
Yeah.
mega viral on that one. You shared an image from Marketunis to
Yeah.
kind of illustrate
With the
this
lemmings.
data contradiction element.
Yeah.
You basically wrote about like how agreement doesn't always mean that you're on the right path, and you
Exactly.
emphasize that like healthy disagreement and psychologically safe environments leads to better collective decisions and like you when approached constructively, obviously. What about like when data reveals a narrative that contradicts a business team's creative vision, marketing maybe? Like how do you present in that boardroom with the marketing team, like, without crushing their creative enthusiasm?
Yeah, I mean, that part actually is really about storytelling, I would say, right? And ironically, the ones who are actually expert in storytelling, who are the creative people, right? They are the ones who need to be told a story now that makes them not explode or getting really upset about it. And all of a sudden, you have to tell the right story to a bunch of expert storytellers. So that makes it very tricky. But all in all, though, right? The thing is, again, that the facts are contradicting what they came up with is the fact and what happened. But there's what you can communicate and how you communicate it. There's always a choice, right? And the what is probably already fixed because this is the message you need to tell, but you can always choose how to tell them.
Mm,
And again, this is where I feel like also having worked with marketers that they of course want to be valued for their creativity and for their ideas and what they came up with the whole concept. If the data is now basically contradicting that, then the message shouldn't be you were wrong, but the
mhm,
message should be, is there a way how we can actually tweak your creative so it actually fits better to the findings that I have, right? My audience actually doesn't like this. They actually enjoy this one more. Maybe we could change the testimonial to this one. Or the audience we found out is spending more time on this social media channel than the other one. Maybe we should not plan so much on this channel, but the other one. But giving actionable guidance, right? That is not saying stretch the whole thing. It doesn't make any sense. but more like constructive criticism, right? As in the facts are saying that this and this. So our suggestion would be, knowing how much work you put into it, could we tweak it in that direction instead? And this has a higher likelihood that it should work. So yeah, basically that takes conscious storytelling, right? You need
Mm.
to actually spend some time and tell a story, right? But I would always say, even if that takes a lot of time, because this is what people complain to me about, right? Why should I invest so much time in storytelling? It's just a table. They can read it themselves, and now I'm creating all this PowerPoint around it, right? But the thing is, if you don't tell a story and you just show them the table and they realize what's happening, then cleaning up and repairing that relationship might take a lot more time than the one
Mhm.
you invested in the beginning in storytelling. So I would say rather invest there and try to be proactive in maintaining the good relationship and being constructive and being a good collaborator than actually having to fix it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great advice. I think one of the most important stories to tell as someone who's like reported and measured marketing activity throughout his whole career is like one of the most important to tell is it's okay to have negative results. Like not every campaign has to
That is
be a
true.
massive win. And sometimes the results, the insights that we uncover from the losses and the misses end up being just as important because from those come a better campaign idea. And so we switched the narrative from it being like, "Your campaign really sucked," to, "Here's what we learned about why this didn't necessarily resonate with folks," or, "This is the methodology that we use to measure it. It's not perfect. Here are the holes in it, like, we have a confidence interval on it, like, we don't think that multi-touch attribution is the perfect way to measure this, but based on the trackable touch points," like, so there's a way to kinda spin it because, yeah, I think marketers are very sensitive when it comes to the creative side of the gig, but, yeah, I love your answer.
Absolutely. But I have to also say, maybe to that note, right? There's a difference of when you use data in a campaign lifecycle, right? Because
Mm,
if you use it earlier during the creational conceptuation of a campaign and it's more about consumer insights, so you are still in the planning phase, then you have a choice to listen to it, right? It doesn't have to be bad. You haven't performed yet, right? You haven't run the campaign yet. So you can still change your mind
mm,
and try to do things better, and that looks good. But if you have run the whole campaign, you decided to not listen to any data or ignore data at all, and now you're performing badly, not even the data can save you, right? So we cannot magically create better metrics for you just because you didn't listen up front. And this is why, right, as the earlier you can actually work with data teams or data in your campaign lifecycle, the better off you would be, right? Because then, um, ideally, you worked on data-informed decisions, right? And then they turn out to be good, and you actually have better KPIs and metrics as well in the end. But it's not always the case, and this is where the tricky thing comes from, right? To try to look good, but the data doesn't support it, and then you have this bad situation.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
we try to empathize, like, not hiding your wins and only showcasing or not hiding your losses and only showcasing the wins, but it's easier said than done in
Of
this
course.
economic climate, right? Like, you don't wanna just shout about the losses, but, it's a tricky
Exactly.
one for sure. What comes to mind if I ask you, like, what's the most valuable disagreement in a business context that you've lost? And how did it change your perspective or your approach to cross-functional collaboration?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think um yeah, I would say the most disagreements I had, without having to be specific about names and brands that I work with, might get sensitive, were about the balance between commercial success and doing the right thing societally or
Mm,
sustainably, right? Whereas I would find consumer insights that are supporting that people want to be greener now and they want to be better and they want to support certain minorities more and they want to have a good cause now kind things. Whereas on the other side, they decide to just put everything on discount and to still choose the cheapest way of producing things to sell them in the easiest way. And those were always the disagreements kind of that I was facing. But I realized that there's always a moment, and a momentum, right, for these kinds of conversations.
mm,
And I cannot keep on being just very stubborn about certain things that I'm trying to make, because otherwise I come across as, yeah, hard to work with, right? Difficult
mm.
to work with, basically. because I cannot accept a no, right? And I just keep on pushing and pushing and pushing until it doesn't really end well. So I think the one thing I learned about it is that sometimes it's not about the decision being wrong, it's just not the right time for the right decision. And I learned that if I bring it up at a different time, when actually people are in a different mood and timing wise it's better, that the right decision might be taken much more likely. And just because I'm like running out of time, or I feel like I need to urge the decision now, it doesn't mean the rest of the world can follow me, right?
Mm.
So I think that is the main learning I had from that.